When I say the word Castlemilk, what do you think of?
Kind of cows grazing in this beautiful green Arcadia. Probably in Suffolk or something.
When I say the word Castlemilk, what do you think of?
Woods, trees, bluebells.
It reminds me of the kind of gang life and the murders. Common.
A reasonably rough area, but for an area that's very rough, it's got lots of nice grassy bits.
I think of a housing scheme, obviously, yeah. I know it's been refurbished, and they're pulling a lot of it down and rebuilding a lot of it.
Right, when I say the word Castlemilk, what do you think of?
Castles and milk. Well, we just have this kind of reputation of being a really rough area. I haven't been there, but just because of the reputation.
When you say Castlemilk, I think that the people are the salt of the earth, and I think that they've not been given a fair deal. They were given homes without the amenities.
Well, the only thing I can think of is my mother and I were having a conversation about the merits of various types of lager, and she asked me if I'd tried Castlemilk 4X.
People everywhere are clamouring for houses. 94,000 names comprise the waiting list in Glasgow alone. Of these, 40,000 are the names of people who are actually houseless. To provide more and more new houses in the shortest possible time is the aim of the municipal representatives at George Square. Chaos left by the Second World War and severe shortages of labour and material are gradually being overcome.
Post-World War II in Glasgow, there were some extremely poor housing conditions, especially in the centre of Glasgow, and high levels of overcrowding, and the idea was to lower the overcrowding and improve the living standards of those people in public rented housing.
Crumbling buildings that make only the crudest provision for hygiene. For too long, daily life has been a fight against overcrowding, sickness, disease, and death.
The original planning of the state was done on the basis of emergency. The pressure to provide new houses was enormous.
And down too comes close on a century of domestic history. These old stones, so rudely and suddenly tumbled, have sheltered generations of Glaswegians in good times and bad. They have rung with the laughter of children and groaned with the loneliness of the aged. Now they must go.
A lot of the houses from which people were relocated were in private ownership, private landlords. The powers weren't available at that time to upgrade these properties, and unfortunately a lot of good properties were lost in the 50s and 60s.
Homes like those in Moss Park were built in the first years of peace to meet the needs of people who had grown tired of tenement life. It was an age of ideals. A victorious nation owed its tired warriors a new life. Precious acres of arable and pasture land disappeared under streets and pavements. The supply of new houses increased, but the demand seemed insatiable. It became evident that Glasgow must stop spreading and devouring. The time had come to tear up that no tenements resolution of 1934 and start building flats with up-to-date amenities, communal gardens and greens.
Sites of new permanent houses will be seen from the map, which is, after all, a fascinating thing when it shows house-hungry people where houses are being built. The Pollock area alone will form a community unit of over 8,500 houses, with a total population of 34,000 people. A settlement as big as many sizable towns in Scotland.
A lot of the planning which took place, I understand, took place in the 1940s.
As to how this new building should be done and where it should be done, the forces that be, and I think political forces were at play, led to the building of the peripheral estates in Glasgow.
Castlemilk, a lovely piece of country with many natural amenities, will accommodate 9,000 houses. Tory Glen, smaller, nevertheless.
But the important thing is that they were kept in Glasgow. So they're on the outskirts of the city, but at the same time, they were definitely still part of Glasgow.
sites having been secured, the knowledge and skill of a large technical staff is concentrated on the vast project. Architects must plan, then engineers and surveyors must translate plans into reality.
First houses in Castlemilk town. Glasgow Dean of Guild Court granted linings to the value of £4,500,000 to the Corporation of Glasgow to enable a start to be made on the new Castlemilk housing scheme. 2,461 ordinary type houses and 720 houses built by the Crosswall system. They are mostly 3 and 4 storey tenements of 3 and 4 apartments. They are the first linings granted for the new scheme, which when completed will comprise of 8,305 houses. There will also be 13 churches, 8 shopping centres, libraries, a cinema and a fire station.
Under the blades of the bulldozers, the rolling farmlands of Renfrewshire and Lanarkshire have been planed down to cradle the new communities of Castlemilk, Easterhouse and many others. Here, under the hands of the builders, the walls of a new Glasgow are rising, and soon there will be another pilgrimage of covered vans bringing escapees from the dark tenement areas of the inner city to the sunlight and healthy living of outer Glasgow.
I moved from Archival kitchen in Bridgeton. I had 7 children. I got 5
Came here in
apartments.
1956, we were part of it was called the Big Flip for the Gorbals. Knocked up the back end open, tipper, main pond, 6
Well,
rooms.
a lot of our old neighbours had flitted up beside us because their places was coming down. I moved from Promotional. From Bridgeton.
On the south side of the city. I lived in hospital.
My wife and myself, we lived at that
Rochester
time.
Street, off the Gallagher.
A sister as
Been
well.
born in
and when we
number 12
applied
Portland Street,
for a bigger house,
Richmond
we all
area
thought
that is.
we would like to
And
keep
we were
together.
the fourth
when we applied
generation.
The beams fly apart.
It's an exciting moment when they open the front door for the first time and see the roomy entrance hall and the bright interior.
Oh, when I came here, they were still building the place. You know, a lot of the places here didn't even exist when I came here.
At first there was no roads or pavements or anything. No shops or nothing, no schools or anything.
Of that time that we came here, it was like Siberia, this place, really.
1945, 62,000 families have turned their backs on the old tenement life of the past and now live in happy communities, escapees from the conditions of last century.
Oh, I thought it was great because there were bathrooms and things that we never had.
Moved into a 3 apartment. It seemed big, plenty of room there.
It was a fight to see who was going to get into the bath first. I'd never seen a bath before, it was all you used to get through in a sink.
I thought it was a lovely end of the town when I first seen it.
Oh, no, beautiful, you know, at first, and Market Drive is beautiful. It was a oval bit of grass in the centre. You know, and there was 2 or 3 policemen stayed there at a time and quite friendly.
Because this is not just a building project, but the culmination of almost half a century of war against dirt, disease and human degradation. These houses, with their modern facilities, are the victorious battlefields of that war.
They belted up the houses, first class houses, we can't complain about that. But there was nothing for, he said, the women, long hurls back to the old grocers. Everything, there was nothing economics here. Everything had to be on a bus and away. Wains with prams and then coming back with the wains with the prams and a ton of messages. Pure stupidity in the whole lot of it.
No, see, there was absolutely nothing, no shops. Dependent vans which bled you dry price-wise. They made a blunder at the beginning when they didn't put the shops in. They were like a shopping centre. People with young families, it was terrible for them because we're living maybe on one wage, plus their husbands' travelling expenses, plus children to clothe, and they depended on the vans. But they could run up messages for Monday to end of the week and pay it then when they got their wages. But they were still paying a lot more than they should have. Took advantage of the situation.
This was to be my first parish somewhere in Scotland, you see, and I wanted very much to work in a new area where it was fresh, everything was new. I didn't, because I had ideas about what I thought the church should be. We started with a workman's bothy as a kind of canteen place just at the junction of Machrie Drive, I think, or Machrie Road and Castlemilk Drive. Just at the corner there was a wee bit, and there was this hut. It was the only thing I could see that was around. There was nothing else. There were no schools even yet. And you know, that little place very soon became very full because there were a tremendous number of people there, and a tremendous number of children, and pretty well every family had several kids, and so the place was absolutely hotching.
It happened yesterday on the banks of an artificial lake near Castlemilk Children's Home in Glasgow. The toddlers wandered from their homes down to the lake and watched older boys play cowboys and Indians. As police and firemen raced...
There wasn't even any railings nor nothing put round that. You tell me the common sense of these people, of the big IQ idea, the authoritativeness of an architect, to know that was going to be gut up with wains, and they couldn't have railed the whole lot of them.
August the 11th, 1959. Today Castlemilk is regarded by many as the heir apparent to Gorbals for the title of Glasgow's leading trouble spot. This, however, is a superficial and unfair judgment. The first sight of Castlemilk is a surprise. There are trim gardens and attractive windows. Children are clean, well-dressed and friendly. Adults helpful and pleasant.
It's a vast difference to me, you know, you're in the city and noise 24 hours a day, like, and when you come up here it was just a different environment altogether, which you did get used to.
There are indications that the high cost of travel has its benefits. The expense makes family outings almost impossible, so that more and more time and energy are being directed towards the home. Family life, in almost every case, flourishes.
There's nowhere to go. Not too many picture halls closed down. The only one I had was another one, so there was bus fares in there.
Castlemilk, in common with all the schemes, has a real lack of adequate recreational facilities. The tenants feel strongly about this situation, and there is a general belief that if the authorities take no action, the men would undertake the building of some kind of playground. It is a quiet, residential area which reflects in miniature the improving standards of the nation as a whole, and is a complete success both for the tenants who have integrated to produce such an area, and for the authorities who have finally learned from their mistakes.
It used to be when you said, like years ago, that if I was doing England or something like that, I heard you say Glasgow, and then you used to get, all right, but now they say, oh yes, whereabouts in Glasgow, and you say Castlemilk, all right, and they can't, they're frightened to look at you after that. They kind of, just turn their head away.
We were standing outside the boat one day waiting in the queue, me and a couple of my pals, and there was actually quite a lot of lasses for Castlemilk there. And a few lasses came up to us and said, if there's anybody for Castlemilk turns up at night, will you help us do them? I just said aye. We bother.
Well, just look at you, so one of the crowd. Because you stay there, you're one of the mob, aren't you? One of the crowd. Aye, absolutely.
That's my son.
I bet yes, I got it.
So there was a lot of good dreams, good hopes, and an excitement. So that the schools were very important too. What went on in the schools.
Healthy bodies, to make good citizens, must be tenanted by active and well-informed minds. Striking this necessary balance is a problem which Glasgow is facing and solving with bright new schools. These well-designed buildings, with their attractive surroundings and up-to-date equipment, are making education a pleasant preparation for the responsibilities of adult life.
I think I enjoyed the kind of, if you might put it, the honeymoon experience. The early sort of days where there was this tremendous newness and excitement. Everything was vibrant and growing up and round.
It was really a good scheme for everybody that came from Bridgeton, the south side, the other side of the water, the Carlton, all different areas moved up here, Kinnan Park and all these different places. And it was a real good community.
Many of them will be housed in huge modern blocks.
Building industry was keen to develop these techniques, the techniques which would enable them to construct high rises. and subsidies were provided by the government which actually facilitated the growth of high-rises. The idea of high-rise development can be dated back to a group of particular architects, but one stands out, and that's Le Corbusier.
They combine every comfort of modern living with a tremendous saving in ground space.
And when he conceived of a high-rise, he conceived of a high-rise which would have many amenities built into it. That there would be shopping facilities, group facilities, washing facilities, and so on and so forth, all built into the development. However, to do such a thing would be very expensive. And so what tended to happen was that simply the high-rise would be built with just dwelling space in it.
Another experiment in better living.
Castlemilk's a nice site, you know, on the hill there, looking down over the smoky Glasgow. Here we were in Castlemilk. Great.
It was a very good community. There's no worries about break-ins or any sort of violence or anything like that.
4th of June 1964. The showbiz success of a host of school children has taken a housing scheme by storm.
Memories of the man that used to come around the back court and sing, and people used to throw him out money into a hat and things like that. You know? That's gone back a long time, yeah, but I've still got that vivid memory, you know.
New shopping centre for Castlemilk. Having paid through the nose for years, Castlemilk housewives are jubilant that the days of high food prices in the area will soon be over.
So when this opened up a person, you had place shops here there, you had Woolworths, you had Cooper's, Swinecare, you know these places.
It's Cowboy McCormick, the boxer, he says, you should train up here. The air's like toys and mince, you could eat it, he says.
Jeannie the monkey takes the mickey until yesterday when the pet monkey was captured after 5 days.
After a few years, we seem to be getting an unsavoury element started moving in.
I must have been in about 10 years before this other crowd came in. And he seemed to, well, they wouldn't wash the stairs or anything. They didn't do anything about the gardens or nothing like that. Nobody seemed to bother to check them or get them to do anything. Just seemed to get away with it.
They were using any old kind of wood to make fencing for their garden. And some was up and some was down. It was a mess. But then I was only 8 years in that house and I moved up to Duggery Road, and it's just been absolute heaven there.
7 lads living in a city trouble district didn't want to wait on their dreamboat coming in, so they built one.
There was nothing to do. There wasn't any amenities here. It was just a case of meeting up with your pals out of school and wandering about the streets, you know.
Where we were all brought up, you picture houses and all the rest of it, dance halls, nothing like that in Castlemilk. One time it's the biggest scheme in Europe. Think about it.
That's right, isn't it?
Nothing in it.
Most of all these men were working at the time. You were coming home at night. You couldn't come home and get the bus right home and say, I'll get to my local for a pint. That's at the same time. You take it after early and after Glasgow Cross, went to a pub where you could get a pint and then come home, and you know, when you come home that was you in.
An angry mother hit out last night at a killer pond on a housing scheme, only hours after her 4-year-old son had been rescued from the pond after sinking in the mud.
An MP and 3 councillors held a top priority meeting last night on the banks of a killer pond. Mr. Taylor said, I want action, fast. We will be meeting the Director of Parks in the morning to...
Trouble became more rife in the different areas. There was different areas getting such a bad name, you know, they would tell you keep away from that bit and this bit.
No, not really, because the other ones that flitted in weren't anxious to be here. So once they were settled in, they wanted back to their own area. So each and everyone went back, and the ones that was anxious kept it nice.
I mean, I knew it was a disaster from the start. They eventually just pulled it down a couple of years ago. It was too close congested. You know what happens when there's too many people in one area? What happens? It just becomes a slum. But see, I've always had good neighbours. That's one thing I've always had. even down where I was, were great, and they all left.
On Friday, a young housewife fled her home with her 3 children in Glasgow's sprawling Castlemilk housing scheme. She had been the target of vandals and hooligans who uprooted her garden plants, smashed her windows.
A dozen families got together last night to help stamp out vandalism and fear in their street. The tenants from trouble-torn Ballantay Crescent and Glasgow's sprawling Castlemilk scheme decided to set up a tenants association for the street. Tenants in the Terra Terrace of Castlemilk, Glasgow, made plans last night to turn it into the showpiece of the city, and hours earlier they appealed to a family which left after it became a target of vandals. We want you back. The family which left Ballantay Terrace because of the vandalism their home was subjected to.
Into action yesterday went the Castlemilk Crusaders. I watched 2 of them at work. The point is that both admitted that a few days ago they would have done no more than touch-tat. I'd have said it was terrible and just left it at that, because we get an awful lot of it.
I mind reading it years ago, it was classed, when they were classing the Castlemilk, they were classing it with the city of Perth. At that time we had no swimming pool, and I think Perth had 2 and had 3 cinemas or something like that. I remember reading it in the Sunday Mail.
Glasgow's fight to overcome the problem of teenage gangs and housing schemes has received a double boost in the form of 2 new community centres. Lord Provost John Johnson officially opened the Castlemilk Centre last night, and the other...
And it was a real good community. Even when we came here and we opened this community centre, we started the dancing on a Saturday night, which got to be a good thing, but there was no drink allowed at that time, you know. It was a real good community, and everybody was that friendly. Never any violence of any kind, never even heard of a break-in. But it all changed, I would say, after about 15 years. I got a lot of the gangs started getting about and that, and it was a young generation coming up. So it wasn't just too good.
Plans by 400 teenagers to hold a Saturday night hop were killed yesterday by a group of councillors. James Anderson, Progressive, said, "This is infuriating. Do you need to be a pop star before you can get anything done to help teenagers?"
Well, I didn't think I had much problem with gangs or anything like that, you know. Well, I'll give you an example. When I worked, right, okay, when I was working at the time, I was coming home, you had a care out and that. Well, the boys maybe should have gone that, but they helped you out and take you through and into the house.
You'll find that once they've grown up, you know, when they're going through that stage, you know, the teenager, you know, up to 18, 19, 20, they want to be the big shot sort of stuff. But I've noticed that once they get married or settle down and have a family, they sort of quieten down, you know.
There was a crowd of boys up the next road, next close, and sometimes they get into trouble. Now they're helping in Castlemilk. One boy, he robbed my house, and we're talking about the different things that happened in Castlemilk. And he says, "You mind your house got broke into?" I says, "You should mind, it was you that done it." Oh, he says, "Let's forget it."
I'm told that there was a terrific sort of camaraderie, sense of community in some of these old buildings, in the Gorbals at Bridgeton. You know, people really kind of looked after each other.
4 generations in our home. How did you think that felt when I went by there? But in Portland Street, I had 40 moths. If you done anything wrong, it wasn't only your mother that scalped your ass. The first one that was near home when they knew it was bad, you got it. And if you're stupid enough to go home greeting about it, she would give you an all.
No matter what scheme you go to, it's a different environment from the city, from where I was before. I mean, in the Gallagate, a lot of people run the Gallagate down. You could go away and leave your door just in a check. Could go out for a walk, leave your doors open. Couldn't you do that now?
The estate was built in the 1950s by the then Glasgow Corporation to rehouse families displaced from the inner city by the slum clearances and to reduce long post-war waiting lists for public sector housing. But the intervening years brought problems for Castlemilk and its people. Although the changing social and economic landscape in the 60s and 70s brought dramatic improvements to both housing and living standards for most Glaswegians, Castlemilk and many of its residents were increasingly left behind.
Round about the 70s, round about the 1970s was, I think, was the worst period up here. I would say in about the 70s. About the 70s.
Round about 1976 or 77, something like that.
It was going down and down and down.
Middle 70s. 75, 76 for that year.
I think it deteriorated over the years. You know, I mean, when we all came up here, it was like brand new houses, you know, and it was lovely, and everybody kind of kept it good. And I think it's like the generations that have come.
Started getting a bit like the Gorbals, and the policemen moved out. You know what I mean?
You see the gang warfare and that. No, that's a big part of it, because it was, Castlemilk was like section. No, like say Macquarie, Arden Craig, Armalish, the Valley, Homebuyer, Glenacre, and every bit of the gang.
The dream homes of the 50s were in need of upgrading, and the welcome, wide open spaces had become difficult to maintain.
Well, if you're suggesting that there were faults with the design of the scheme as it was originally built, then I can agree with you, but of course we all have the benefit of hindsight.
As time has shown, the building techniques used and the quality of the materials used in the building have led to the decay of the estates to a period in the 1970s, 1980s, when they were incredibly run down.
It was in get the houses up, get them in and save money. That was a facet of it.
To be fair to the people who did build the estate, if today's planners, architects, roads engineers had been under the same pressure, we might have made mistakes as well, and indeed we may have made mistakes.
It just seems the district council didn't want nothing to do with the houses. They just let them run down, they said any repairs and all that.
But the corporation was to blame, they let things slide too far.
Nevertheless, as a town planner, I would say that it was perhaps the absence of people in our profession which contributed towards some of the problems which arose.
And although Castlemilk was of comparable size to a small town, it still lacked vital facilities and services other communities took for granted.
There weren't enough facilities and things for anybody, you know, even the young ones, not just the young ones, but for other people as well. There weren't enough places for them to go. And we had a picture house not so far from us, but that was changed into a bungalow.
Important talks are being held between an MP, council officials and cinema owners, all because 11-year-old Anne-Marie Horan wrote a letter. Anne-Marie decided a little prodding in high places was needed to get more entertainment facilities in the giant housing scheme where she and her 6 brothers and sisters live. So she wrote to local Tory MP Teddy Taylor complaining that youngsters had to travel to youth clubs and cinemas outside Castlemilk. Mr Taylor was so impressed that he took the matter up with the corporation, and yesterday he said we could get some action.
The decline of Glasgow's traditional heavy industries, particularly shipbuilding, with which many Castlemilk families had strong links, led to a substantial rise in unemployment. Poverty and associated social problems were becoming acute.
The areas which have the poorest quality housing and the highest levels of deprivation in English cities tend to be towards the centre. Well, in Scotland it's slightly different, and they tend to be on the outskirts. And so you have a situation where the people who are in greatest need of finding work, in greatest need of accessing cheap but good services, find themselves the furthest away from them.
All these factors combined to turn Castlemilk from an area in which people were happy to live to somewhere they were glad to leave if given the choice.
There was a lot of empty houses lying empty. That was at that time. Because the folk couldn't get out quick enough. It wasn't a very nice place.
If you want something, you've got to try and maintain it. I mean, which they didn't. So they run down, people left. When you go to better places, Livingston, Cumbernauld, what do you call it? East Kilbride and all that.
Some of the families, most of them would say, I've got somebody abroad. You know, just left. Make your own way in life.
There's quite a few of them that they went to Australia, America. I'd only got the one son, he went down south.
Castlemilk's population dropped from over 36,000 in 1971 to under 20,000 in 1990. a vivid indicator of the area's declining reputation.
I first went to Castlemilk about 6 years ago now, and I went there as a student of Glasgow University. One experience that sticks out was a time where I interviewed some young girls. And these girls were between 8 and 14 years old. So I asked them what they wanted to be when they grew up, and a long list of jobs came out, such as teachers, doctors, airline stewards, film actresses, things like that. Jobs which are the aspirations of a hell of a lot of young people. And the thing that struck me was that these girls who were between 8 and 14, they told me that they felt that they had no chance of getting these jobs because they were from Castlemilk.
I think the people that say Castlemilk, I think people in Castlemilk are a wee bit thick, to tell you the truth, and I think it's still going to this day. I was a person for a year, went for a job, and somebody from East Kilbride went for a job, and you had two of the same qualifications. The person from East Kilbride would get it.
Like the minute you say to the girl in Castlemilk, and I mean, if you wait up, if somebody came to you for an interview for Newton Mearns and somebody came for Castlemilk, be honest, who would you take on?
What I've heard is you can't be a lawyer if you live in Castlemilk.
My pal got told that. Aye, she went to university to get in, and they basically told her, oh, you stay in Castlemilk, you've no chance.
It's got a bad name.
There are a lot of good youngins up here. That Glenwood school in Margaret Meares, was a lot of good pupils come out of there. They're never mentioned. It's always a bad element that's mentioned. Never mention the good things.
Information office management. So I'm doing that for 2 years, and that takes me to third year uni. Then I'm going to do 2 years at that, or 3 years even. But I do want to spend a lot of time learning what I'm going to do, like be a manager, and so I know what I'm going to do when I go to the job. You know what I mean? I'm not stupid, you know, and I hate that. People think we're stupid with Castlemilk.
The declining population led to many empty houses and a general deterioration in the environment, with neglected gardens, back courts and stairways, and a lack of off-street parking.
Continuous decline, you do it about it.
I think it's a bit too wild for my liking. I mean, well, it's not really Castlemilk, it's where I was brought up was Arden Craig, and that was a bit too rough for my liking.
I've always thought it as being alright. I mean, it's got a kind of stereotype.
It's kind of dull, there was nothing really to do. If you wanted to go anywhere, you would have to travel with the kids, and it was money all the time.
Or the kids are out, and this is such a big place, you don't know where they are, you don't know what they're doing. You're just off-ski, you know, and they're doing what it is they're doing. And
Obviously there's some places, like when you go in, like on a Friday and Saturday night, there's hundreds of people like, hanging about and now drinking with their cargo. But that happens everywhere. I've been, because lots of places I've been, you see it everywhere in the town and all.
You know, there was actually people walking out the place without even having somewhere to go. You know, they just said, oh, I've had enough. Back to stuff in the lorry and away.
Because it used to be purely old, right, horrible houses that were falling down in dampness and all that, but
Although the existing houses are structurally sound, many of them now require new wiring, insulation, damp-proofing and heating systems.
The policy of right to buy recognises, so it says, the desire of every individual to own their own home. And it attempted to encourage that by offering significant discounts to people in their council properties.
Obviously, the longer your tenancy, the bigger your discount. So, and it runs, I think, the maximum 70% discount for tenements for a long tenancy. So you've got people, and have bought houses in Castlemilk for £6,000-7,000, and that's what the council gets in receipts for them. But that's not what even that's a set of windows for another house, somewhere with today's prices.
There are certain areas within Glasgow which were regarded as being very desirable areas. Areas which were perhaps built between the First and Second World Wars, which were public council estates, such as Knightswood, I think. Practically every property has now been sold.
In Castlemilk terms, right to buy really has not been a major issue for us because of the location of the scheme and the aspirational wishes of people to own their own house. Up until fairly recently, the numbers who had applied to buy and subsequently purchased were under 200 out of a stock of 7,000 or 8,000.
The pool of housing that remains, which is in areas which are regarded as being the worst areas, and the properties are regarded as being the worst properties. Also, the people who were in areas such as Knightswood, because they were in the better properties, there were lower maintenance charges associated with those properties. As a result of right to buy, a major contributor to public resources, and at the same time a contributor who demanded little back, has been taken out of the equation.
Well, the problem in general for the city is that as the more and more houses it sells off or disposes of under right to buy, it reduces the customer base in terms of raising rents, if you like, and the debt that stays with the council and the sale of that house still has to be serviced and paid for. So even though it was built 40, 50 years ago, there's still a capital debt on it, which has to be met from the existing rent payers in the city. Problems further exacerbated by right to transfer or voluntary transfer to housing associations and demolitions, and that again, when those houses transfer to a housing association, the debt doesn't go with them, it stays with the council.
At precisely 10 seconds past 5 this evening, a truly historic pint of beer will be poured. The 10 seconds is the time it will take after opening for first orders to be served in Scotland's newest pub, and there will be no shortage of customers, for some will have been waiting 30 years for the moment.
It's in Castlemilk, the post-war housing scheme which with 40,000 residents has a population the size of Perth's.
By comparison, the town of Perth, with roughly the same population, supports 46 pubs and 19 hotel licences. Scotland's newest pub is set to break all records by taking more than £1 million in the next 12 months, and there is not a rival pub in sight.
The major problem which the community identified during the preparation of the Castlemilk Partnership strategy was poverty, and that is one problem that hasn't gone away. Other attendant problems such as unemployment and drugs related issues, etc.
Drug problem just now is pretty high on the list of non-Castlemilk. No, but it was a great issue to start. I've heard a lot of people say it is, but I don't think so. You know what I mean? When I was at 40, 50, it wasn't a great issue, but it was there, but just now it's rife. No? Instead of past the Castlemilk. Just the way the system's going. All over Scotland, all over England, all over Britain.
Once the drug scene opened up, you know, especially younger people, it was terrible. And to a certain extent it's still like that now, but it's improving, you know. I think it's down to the people now to make it a decent place.
Well, I've no much experience with a drug problem myself, you know, but it's going by what you hear and read, I don't think it's as bad as you make it, you know.
Well, I've brought up 5 kids in the scheme and I've never had any problems like that with them. None of my kids have touched anything like that.
See, a lot of people in Castlemilk did show an interest. That's why you've got all these projects, and a lot of people are volunteering with all these projects, and because they've got that wee bit of interest in Castlemilk. But before that, there was nothing. So it was a case of how we're going to amuse ourselves. So especially younger people. So we'll smash up some walls, we'll break into some houses and all this kind of stuff. But a lot of men of them now are getting involved in Castlemilk.
There's there other houses and they're making this vile excuse. I stay in Scarrow and I've been there 8 years. If I wanted to set my house on fire, I could do it and come up here and camp. What's the sense when there are people in the area 30 years and can't get out it? You've got to do your sentence in Scarrow before you can get out, and then you'll be lucky if you get out after it.
Castlemilk City, as it became to be known, began when there was a fire in a place called Scarrow Drive, up in the East End of Castlemilk.
Here on the 6th of April, because of a fire, the tenants of 5 flats were evacuated and given emergency accommodation elsewhere.
So a group of people, including myself, we got a van and we went and we'd arranged that we would take the people's furnitures and distribute them to different households in the area with people who were sympathetic.
The housing department now believe the flats are ready to be reoccupied, but the tenants refuse to go back and want to be rehoused somewhere else on the scheme. They claim the fire was started deliberately by vandals, that it isn't safe for them to return. To the housing department, their request is unreasonable.
They wanted them to stay in the area. There's a reason for that, is that there was an area called Ballantyre, which is still called Ballantyre, which is now a co-op. But that was an area where people, there was a big transfer list. And when people left that area, it actually became a deserted area, and then the place deteriorated. And it was in that state until the housing co-op took it over and we did it. I mean, there was roofs burned and stuff. What the housing department didn't want to happen was for Scarrow to go the same way, because they also had a big transfer list. Just about everybody in that area wanted transferred out.
So without a conventional roof over their heads, the tenants have made their own arrangements. They've set up a camp, a Greenham Common look-alike, right in the heart of Castlemilk. Its location has been carefully chosen, bang on the housing department's doorstep. It's a bold attempt to keep their grievance in the public eye, and above all under the eye of the council officials.
What happened then was that we were occupying the housing department, housing office during the day, for the whole day. It was a bit of a circus, it was a bit of fun. People were coming in to pay their rent, getting caught up in this thing and became aware of what was happening, and there was a lot of support. And we were through this ritual each night when they wanted to close the office, when the housing manager would come out and say, he'd have the police there, and he would say, he's asking us to leave. If we refuse, they'll take us out. So that's what happened. We'd refuse, the police would take us around, put us in a van, drop us off round the corner.
The tenants directly involved in the issue are more than matched in numbers by sympathisers who've offered their help. The campaign is rapidly developing into a more all-embracing assault on the whole housing system.
Suddenly, people's cases had been reviewed, or things were happening simultaneously, let's say. They were saying there was no victory, these things had been sorted out in their own, their own natural course, had been. But of course, nobody believed that,
Well, as you've heard, it's a complex problem with no simple answer. Solving it is made even more difficult by the age-old divide between tenant and landlord and the mutual misunderstanding which that causes. Possibly in the long term, the answer lies in the growing idea of self-management.
People were getting together, and then you had all these different places opening where you could attend and make your voice heard that you were not pleased.
I think it was the beginning of the 80s, mid-80s, they started forming not so much housing association co-ops, tenants associations, because I was involved in that and all, at the start of, and that kind of fell away, then it went into the co-ops, housing associations.
A major initiative aimed at alleviating unemployment and improving the quality of life for the 28,000 inhabitants of one of Glasgow's biggest and most deprived housing schemes was launched yesterday. Built on the edge of Cathkin Braes in the 1950s, Castlemilk rapidly deteriorated through the 60s and 70s into an area which now has 38% unemployment, severe problems of poverty, and amenities which are either totally lacking or badly in need of modernisation and repair.
The plans for the area of Castlemilk always identified areas for bingo halls or dance halls or cinemas and such like. These were always identified as there were areas where these could be developed, but all of these meant private capital. I mean, local authorities don't have the ability to invest in things like that, even if they had the resources. The governments of the day of various hues only allowed the resources to build houses and didn't allow resources to build schools. Even they came along very much later, as we know. You identify opportunities for private investment, but they don't always invest. Their commercial considerations are different from the needs of a community.
Just tell me about the amenities on Castlemilk.
Well, we don't have much amenities. We've only got one shop and 4 shops up at Toppy Road. We've got to travel to Rutherglen. We have one tenants hall, which has got to cater from Tormouth to Arden Craig.
Can I ask you to do that just once more, but don't put in the names and things, because as I said, we'll go again. Here we go.
We've got one
No, wait a minute. I'll give you the old hey-ho. Right. Tell me about the amenities.
We've got one shop, which we've got to travel, and we've only got one community place for children. And then, is that all right?
That's fine. That's lovely.
Well done. The Castlemilk Partnership, which is charged with the task of developing and coordinating a strategy for the long-term regeneration of the estate. The foundations of the partnership were laid by the government white paper, New Life for Urban Scotland, which was published in 1988. New Life's key proposal was the creation of 4 pilot partnership initiatives to plan and coordinate the regeneration of 4 of Scotland's peripheral housing estates. The partnership concept brings together representatives from the local community, the private sector, and a range of public sector bodies with the common aim of developing and jointly implementing a comprehensive, mutually agreed regeneration strategy.
For the past 4 years, this community centre has been at the forefront of the battle against drug abuse in Castlemilk. The Castlemilk Drugs Project offers a range of counselling facilities to local drug users, and a year ago, a needle exchange was set up to combat the risk of HIV infection from shared needles. But now that facility has been withdrawn, and shared needles are back on the streets of Castlemilk. Is that okay?
Goals have been set around 5 key issues: training and employment, housing, land use, social and community issues, and enhancing the image of Castlemilk.
Around about 9 years ago, the houses here were nearly all empty. No one wanted to move into this area. And even the homeless unit that was sent a tenant along, they only lasted around about 3 weeks, and then they left because they just couldn't cope with the problems we had in the area. And as you can see, it's quite a success. We have quite a large waiting list if we're going to do any other houses up.
Are cooperatives a good or a bad thing?
They're a good thing. Where the right conditions exist, where they have support across the board, and where they have the support and commitment of the people involved in it.
Right, there's only, what it seems to be the only options just now is either be a co-op or your houses aren't getting improved because the money isn't there. And I don't think it's Glasgow District Council's fault, it's actually government who are not giving the money over to do like major repairs and repairs.
There is a very real concern over security of tenure and rent increases. The government's proposals are dramatically altering the nature of the existing tenancy that people live under at the moment. They're also wishing to introduce private finance into housing work, and this will inevitably mean, or it's assumed it will inevitably mean, rent increases across the board.
I think one of the things would be you have to be committed to running that co-op because there's an awful lot of hard work involved. It's not just maybe 1 or 2 hours a day attending meetings, it's like a full-time job. We have our own youth projects, we run our own play scheme, and it's not always like committee members that's involved in this. We try and draw the tenants in themselves, because when we interviewed them, one of the things we said would they like to get involved, and actually as the tenants actually make a co-op. If you've got a good set of tenants, you've got a successful co-op.
I think it's just the people really, it's just unchangeable, I can't see it changing. It's just a lot of cheeky people.
I've got that feeling. I mean it's not Castlemilk, it's not the buildings, it's the people they're putting in it.
Right now they've got all these new buildings and new houses and stuff like that, you know, and you just put the same people back into them. It's up to the people to look after their property now. And it's been proved they can do it.
Yeah.
Whereas people in other areas have proved that they can handle these people, you know.
In a sense, it's a new estate because you've got new buildings. What I think keeps the community together is the fact that it's not new people in a whole that's coming back in. It's the people that have been moved out with the old house, moved back into the new house. So it's the same people, they've just been given a new house, which helps.
Well, I noticed the people that have got their houses all renovated and one thing or another done to it, they seem to have got a new lease of life, you know, taking a great interest in it. So it's helped that way.
Because other offices, it's good and bad at it. You find the majority of folk are good. Especially ones that be here for a long time, got a family up here. They've got pride in the place.
I just say you're gorgeous, Diane. I says, my wee grandson, I'm very sorry. Didn't see you at Dorsey. She says, what age is that? She's 6. And she came back, she says, take care of yourself. That was it. That was the lot.
And the family unit, as it was, people tend to remember or like to remember mother, father, and a number of children, all of whom are working. And sustaining the household no longer exists. It all exists in far fewer numbers than it maybe did a few years ago. Just the traditional family now seems to be a single parent with children. And so then designating or defining family is probably the first issue to address. The other issue is that because of that, the people who are on the waiting lists are single parent families or single people. We have to house the people who are on the lists, and we have to tailor the housing provision that we provide to their needs rather than going looking for something which may not be there in the first place.
You know how there's so many pensioners' houses in Castlemilk? Well, now they're putting young ones, mixing them through. And I don't think that's a good idea.
There is an uneven population structure in that there are a disproportionately large number of young people and a disproportionately large number of older people. So you have older people predominantly on benefits, and a lot of the younger people who live in Castlemilk find themselves on benefits. But relatively fewer middle-aged people who would be at the height of their earning potential. And so very little money is coming into the estate which could actually support local businesses.
Management have offered jobs down south weeks before the workers knew they were gone.
Well, I mean, we were asked to attend a meeting in the factory this morning, and we were given the notification, 90 days notice, of a proposed closure.
The workforce are very angry, they feel let down. Do you share that feeling?
I think that's putting it mildly. I mean, the workforce think this is an absolutely disgraceful position. Only a number of weeks ago, the company spoke to the trade union about a limited number of redundancies in order to save the jobs of the rest of the factory. And now, just after the summer holidays, people are told the factory's closing.
There's boys here that's left school and never had a job in their life. And maybe the jobs would be the first thing to concentrate on, you know.
There's a lot of jobs in Castlemilk just now. There's no Castlemilk people that sit there. I'm talking about the big jobs, not just sweepers or cleaners and all that. I'm talking about like housing directors, house manager. It's all people from outside Castlemilk.
I've been for a few job interviews and they're like juniors and hairdressers. As soon as I tell them for Castlemilk, they just look at me and I don't hear from them again. But I've got a job recently and they said Castlemilk was a great place to come for.
As well as benefiting individuals, if the community's spending power is increased, it will be able to support a wider range of commercial and retail facilities.
They are going to put in a development of 1.2 million, but the people of Castlemilk really don't think that is sufficient. I mean, it's all right maybe even doing giving a new roof and painting the arcade, but are we going to get any more shops? I mean, for years we've been waiting on a supermarket, and as yet none has appeared. The aged people and unemployed especially have to go in to Rutherglen or other parts of the city to do shopping and have to take a taxi home, and it's very, very expensive, and the prices here in the centre alone are high because there's only so very few shops.
The Cathkin View development is a good example of how housing is changing in Castlemilk. The first phase of the Cathkin View scheme was completed in 1992, and most houses were sold very quickly.
There's a lot of private houses getting built, so there's going to be less houses for let in the council. And there's a lot of these private developers taking over the rented accommodation. And once they get control, they'll just be able to do what they like. They're selling their private houses too. Well, I think it's a good buy for anybody that's starting off.
Tell me, Mrs. Little, what does it mean to you to be buying a property in Castlemilk?
Well, I don't want to actually pay rent for the rest of our days, you know, and it's too good an opportunity to miss out on, because eventually this place is going to be looking really great. You know, a lot of people are actually moving in, private places coming in to build, you know, so hopefully.
I think they'll be doll's houses. They're not worth the money, definitely not worth the money in fact. A lot of my pals have got them and I don't like them, I think they're too wee. And you've got bedrooms, I've got a cupboard that's bigger than the bedroom in it.
Because I know my friends were actually, who are not far from there, wanted to buy houses that were on the outskirts of the area, but when they made inquiries about the houses when they were starting to be built, they found out they were all sold before they even started building them. So if Castlemilk has got a bad reputation from the past, it must be changing when there are people that are actually buying property in the area. Because people don't buy property in the area if they don't see a future in it.
In the past, if you were raised in Castlemilk and wanted to buy your house, you had to move out with. There were no houses for sale. We've now created that. If you subsequently bought a house and want to move up somewhere else, then you have to move on somewhere else. So we're trying to create a second tier home ownership to keep that ladder going. And by promoting or diversifying landlords, it gives people a choice in terms of the product that's out there, whether they want a tenement or a flat, a multi-storey or a bank front door.
Then to Down Craig to see some completed houses in the community renewal project.
If you, Angus, saw what we were living in to what we're in today, then you would know why the people have actually came forward and worked.
So it's about choice and about giving people a reason to stay, as opposed to keeping them here until they take the decision to go.
These court appearances followed a swoop on Bennigan's pub in Castlemilk's Ardmalish Road by Strathclyde Drug Squad and CID officers yesterday. A total of 18 people, 14 men and 4 women were detained.
The partnership's ultimate aim is clear: to restore the estate to a place in which people will choose to live and bring up their families.
And for it to do that, then it has to have decent shops. It has to have a decent nightlife. It has to have decent recreational facilities and so on and so forth. Now, it's starting to provide very good recreational facilities. There are very few places where you can go out in the evening for a drink. There's hardly anywhere, if anywhere, where you can go out for a meal. And these are all the things which attract people to live in an area and set up home.
It's that it has a better sense of community. It has assets such as its woodlands, its views over the city, and it has now a developing range of facilities which many other residential suburbs of the city don't have. For example, the new sports centre, the Barlia playing fields, and a range of facilities such as the health centre, a redeveloping shopping centre. Many residential suburbs of the city just don't have these things, and yet people want to live there. Why shouldn't they want to live in Castlemilk? And they do want to live in Castlemilk.
A lot of people moved out of Castlemilk one time, and since the private developers and housing association groups have moved in, these people are starting to move back into Castlemilk. But they took easy way out. They go out when the going was tough, you know what I mean? Now it's getting better, they want to move back in again. Don't get me wrong, sometimes I think it's a good idea, because it brings investment into Castlemilk. And that's what the people need in Castlemilk, investment. You need to get the money in Castlemilk, keep it in Castlemilk. You know?
So what do you think about the flats coming down?
A story day for Castlemilk, but I think it's good that they're going. You know,
Why?
you don't need high flats. Yes. You know, I feel people must have felt imprisoned in them, really. I would never like to live in a high flat like that.
It's an unlikely visitor attraction, but Glasgow's Castlemilk estate is catching the interest of planners. Once notorious for poor housing and crime, the estate is reversing its image. Housing charity the Joseph Rowntree Foundation says the rest of Europe could learn from it. Money is part of the answer. £90 million spent here in 3 years, but it's not been that simple.
We have a major community involvement in this area, which is not unique to Castlemilk, but nevertheless in some areas perhaps hasn't been achieved. There's a long history of community involvement in Castlemilk, and the partnership's been able to build on that to a large extent.
The cooperation is what's attracted the attention of housing experts elsewhere.
And I don't think there's quite the same understanding, if I may say, in England of the importance of getting economic, social, management and all the other aspects put together in the right way.
It's improved housing standards and also the confidence of the people who live in them.
Castlemilk's good, it's a good area, it's got a lot of good housing and things like a sports centre, it's got a lot of good facilities. It's a good place to live in.
A model perhaps, but its continued success may depend on future funding.
Unless prosperity comes into the estate, then in another 15 to 20 years' time, you will be making the same film again. It will only work if the community ultimately has the capacity to regenerate itself. And that's a challenge that faces Castlemilk.
It may be an idea to compare Castlemilk to a large ocean-going liner that was built in the Clyde, of course, and that is in at present for a major refit. At this point, it's halfway through its refit, and I think if you floated it just now or relaunched it, it probably wouldn't float, and it wouldn't be much use because the passengers don't necessarily have all the facilities in place.
People are working hard at making this place a lot better. There might be a few horrible sites, but they're going to get fixed.
The refit needs to be finished, there's no doubt about it. And the emphasis so far has been in housing renewal in Castlemilk. There's been £150 million spent over the last 8 years or so. So the emphasis to complete the strategy must now go on other elements of the strategy.
It's taken 4 years and nearly £1.5 million of public money, but at last it's ready. This new youth complex boasts the very latest facilities and equipment and is now at the disposal of all 12 to 25-year-olds in Castlemilk. With a staff of 27, it's the largest urban youth scheme anywhere in the UK.
It started from a need which was expressed by local young people. They had very few places to go, and the places that were available to them were at a particularly high cost, so they decided that they deserved somewhere to go which didn't cost very much money, and basically that's how it started.
I think in the early days the housing investment drove the partnership strategy because the money was made available. Other issues like training and employment, leisure, recreation are coming on board now, but the whole package needs to be delivered at a rate and a cost that the tenants in Castlemilk can afford.
First though, Susan has some very exciting news on the festival in Fringe, hot off the press. Susan.
Yes, every year the expectant public and performers hold their breath waiting for the Fringe first to be announced. The awards are generally regarded as showing performances of very high quality, and today at 12 o'clock the first Fringe firsts of 95 were announced. And amongst the international companies was Scotland's own Castlemilk People's Theatre, and we're joined right now, just collecting the award.
Well, I mean, right in the past it was maybe a bit of a dump, but I think they come and see it now, they get a whole new idea.
I would say the majority of people, they're going to take care of their house and try and take care of the area, but there's always the minority, and that's the ones that will drag it down. You look in one area and then you look in another area, and every place is different and everyone's nicer than another. You can really say, oh, that's lovely there, and then you turn and say, oh, yeah, that's even nicer, sort of thing, because it is. The houses are all looking different, and it's, as I say, scheme people are pride in the place, and they're proud to say they come to Castlemilk.
As I say, I've been here 30 odd years, and I wouldn't move into any other scheme. See, I'm a painter and decorator, and I've worked in a few housing schemes. I wouldn't change Castlemilk for any of them, you know. And as you see now, the way it's performing now, you know, the houses, new houses getting built, it's a great thing, you know. If it stays that way, you know.
Welcome back. In this next film, Paul Cameron challenges our perception of one of Glasgow's satellite housing schemes. Using archive film, home movies and interviews, he shows us life as it really is in Castlemilk.
Well, it's hard to say. It's hard to say. I mean, you're trying to forecast something, and you know, and you're trying to make the thing better and better each time. But I dare say it could be the way the amenities have got now, which you didn't have before. But it won't get any worse. It will get better. Will that be doing? Because I've got a free car, I've got a bowling game, that's him at the door there for me. I can give you a big story about Castlemilk.